everyone, and welcome back to Where Do They Get Those Wonderful Commentaries? I am Captain Logan.
And I am Danny.
Danny, we're doing another theme commentary for our 6th and penultimate day of our Batman 1989 commentaries week. Some of these have been bizarre and jokey and complete waste of time. And some of these have been a little bit more academic, and today's will, I would say, be a little bit more academic. What are we going to attempt to chat about for an entire 2 hours while we're watching the film again?
I'm glad you asked, Captain, because we're about to spend 2 hours talking solely about Batmite.
Yep, it's going to be a real scholarly... We're going to add to the scholarship of Batmite.
We're going to get real Grant Morrison up in here.
Why did we decide to do that with 89 of all things? He's not even in this movie.
Fun fact, he's actually playing Bob the Goon the entire time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a surprise, too. He has to really restrain himself because he has no lines of dialogue, and you'd think he would just be chatting up Storm the entire time.
It's an Oscar-worthy performance when you know who the actor is.
Here's a stupid question about Batmite. Do you think... that's redundant. Most of the questions you'd have about Batmite would be kind of stupid questions, but does Batmite terrorize Gotham and Batman because Gotham citizens call themselves Gothamites?
That caught me off guard, but I think you might be right.
So anyway, what are we actually talking about?
We're going to discuss the score and the soundtrack for Batman 89.
Yeah, and we'll probably do some comparison as well to other Batman properties and talk about the music of Batman on the whole. This is a really nice place to do that because, well, first of all, we've got 2 hours to kill, so I'm sure we'll have time to bring in some other things. But also, this is so foundational to Batman music on the whole past 66 that it'll be a really nice place to have that conversation. So this will be as much of a podcast conversation about the music of Batman, and we'll stick mostly with 89, but we'll talk about it again in comparison to some other things, as it will be a commentary of this movie, and we'll try to talk about some of the music in the scenes as we're seeing them, but this won't be a commentary where we're talking quite as much about the exact things that we're seeing as we're seeing them, and we've done that 5 times already, so if you want more of that kind of commentary, go to day 1. Day 1 would be a good place to go. And maybe day 3 or 4. I think we did 2 really jokey ones in a row. It's all running together now.
Yeah, I think it was 4. Yeah.
Was 4. That where...
Honestly, yeah, like you said, it's all running together.
It's all kind of running together now, yeah. But anyway, so it is day 6. We're going to talk about the music, and we both listened to the soundtrack and the score and the print soundtrack again. Both things I'm really familiar with, but refreshed myself again. And Danny, you said you basically just had them on loop all day long.
Basically, yeah, I jumped from like the soundtrack to the score, to the soundtrack back to the score. And
so you'll be even more ready for this than me. I listened to them again through once, but we also did a little bit of research, and we'll bring all that to the table. So relax, strap in, and get ready for another Batman 89 commentary. Here we go. If you want to watch it with us, as always, here's my irritating how to sync up with us spiel for the 6th and really billionth time, considering how many times we've done commentaries. Get out your DVD, your Blu-ray, or right now, Batman is streaming on DC Universe as we record this. That can always change. They're moving things in and out, and it's not on any other streaming place right now as far as I'm aware, but that is a place at the moment that you can stream it. Get it to timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now. Danny, are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
All right, here we go. Everybody please press play right now.
So I guess jumping forward and like just jumping straight into this commentary, like it would be remiss to start anywhere else but the theme, obviously, because it's, that's the first bit of music we hear in this intro, but also it's like, I would say, the most recognizable superhero theme currently.
Yeah, and at the time, I think it was, or even a few years after this, when it had really solidified and was in the culture, I would say that it and the John Williams Superman theme were tied. I think at this point it probably beats it out in recognizability.
Yeah, at least with Superman, I think you'd probably find a toss up between the John Williams score and the animated series as far as like what people think of when they think Superman.
Ooh, I don't agree with that at all. I think the John Williams score absolutely supplants that.
Oh wow! See,
by a lot. I think a lot of people don't know that score.
Well,
or don't know that theme. Yeah, that's because
so
you're a Bruce Timm guy,
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe more your generation, I guess. But like, no, man, I'm pretty sure if I got 100 random people in a room and I played that score, at least half of them would have no idea what it was.
That's fair. I'm very much a biased source when it comes to anything
DCAU.
Yeah, so I'll have to concede on that point.
So what's really interesting about this theme is how extremely simple and yet totally brilliant it is. It's earwormy, it gets in your head, but it's somehow not irritating and not cheesy the way it keeps being used throughout the film. There's almost never a track, if you go listen to the soundtrack by itself, where you don't hear that 6-note melody. It's everywhere, and it keeps getting reorchestrated in so many different styles. It's universal. You can use it for anything.
Yeah. When I was listening to it, I'm bad with names, especially when I've just got it on in the background while I'm working.
Sure.
But give me a second to pull up the names. But like whatever the name for the track is when they're going up the church.
Yeah.
It's there, and it's like it's certainly its own piece of music, and you can hear where that theme is obviously coming in, because it's the main, it's like the skeletal system of that particular song. But
up the cathedral's the track.
Up the cathedral. That's the one I was trying to think of. But just the way it like very effortlessly just can transition into a lighter, more flighty kind of a thing, because they are obviously going up, and it's more of a chase theme.
And I want to be careful and not. We've talked about this before, and how difficult it is especially when you watch the same movie a bunch of times in a row, and you're talking about how important it is and all the things it pioneered. I don't want to pretend like everything that works about this movie or that is influential is the first time it was ever done. So it's not like scores before this weren't already taking like a main theme or a melody and working it into the score a lot. Obviously, that's done a lot. But it's impressive. What's impressive about it in this is that it's not crazy noticeable on a first or second watch. You're not constantly distracted by it. And it's not a theme that is too sing-songy or too superhero. It's not too triumphant. It is impressive, and some of it's in how it's orchestrated each time, but it's impressive that 6-note melody is simultaneously a like tragic noir piece and a triumphant superhero piece, all at the same time.
Yeah, I think you could kind of apply that principle of like something so simple working kind of universally. Like obviously a lot of music is based on like a 3-chord melody or something like that, and then obviously with this theme, you've just got your 6 notes that you can build upon and do so much with. I think that really kind of speaks to what the beauty of this entire score is that finding creativity in like simplicity and finding many ways to go from your same like starting point.
And it doesn't get tonally uneven. Like, it's really impressive how many different ideas Elfman in this is able to convey with again a real simple melody and simple melodies throughout. So some folks are gonna maybe listen to this and be like, you guys are giving Elfman too much credit. He does the same thing every time. This is the first time he does a lot of the things he's doing. He only had... So, I'm just talking about, like, Elfman's writing in this time in his career, when he hadn't reused this stuff 55,000 times. And I would argue that part of the reason that ends up happening, by the way, is A, because he works with Burton so many times, and Burton keeps coming to him for a lot of the same stuff. And secondly, it's because he didn't start as a film scorer, and Danny, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. I was listening.
Oh, no, you're fine. You look like you froze for a second. But this is the problem with doing remote commentary sometimes. But anyway, he didn't start as a film composer, and I think he had such a good first couple of outings that it might have been difficult for him not to keep going to some of the same things. Like, yeah, these great brilliant ideas initially, and then he kind of just keeps regurgitating them.
Yeah, certainly. I think, like, early success can often be a detractor to certain extents. And when you become very famous or very well known very quickly for doing a particular thing, it can become hard for people to come to you for anything outside of that.
That's also not to say that this is his only good score. I'm not saying that. And that he doesn't have great ideas all the way through his career. It's just, he does repeat himself a lot. It's not like John Williams doesn't sometimes either, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. But he's kind of notorious for it. So I did want to mention that. But I brought this up before, and now I finally actually looked into it, so I won't sound like a dummy. Elfman did, of course, write this before Darkman, and I imagine Darkman was a little bit of a rush job, and is why it's just this score again. I think Sam Raimi went to him because, for the same reason a lot of people were going to him, he had done a superhero thing that was insanely popular and changed the world. And he is right for Darkman. He just has too much of the same score, the same melodies and motifs in that. But anyway, it is really super impressive that this is the score that Burton got out of him on just a third movie, and such a big, huge commercial movie. He'd never made anything like this. He had scored 2 things for Burton before this. Burton came to him again. Warner's wasn't sure about him because he was so inexperienced and untested, and he had never really done this kind of orchestral stuff, but it's what he wanted to do. He wasn't interested in doing like synthesized scores and things like that, which were really big right then. So if he was gonna score movies, he wanted to do orchestral, but he didn't have experience in it. But he had this natural talent, and he got music, and it's really interesting that the lead singer and headman for Oingo Boingo gives you this. Like, nobody would have ever, in the same way that nobody would have thought Mr. Mom was the right guy for Batman. Nobody would have ever thought the Oingo Boingo guy is who wrote what has become one of the most recognized and iconic soundtracks that harkens back so hard to old Hollywood.
Yeah, it kind of is a testament to this movie, how many parts of it you wouldn't on the surface think of as being the right fit for this type of Batman project, yet it all comes together so well. Like, obviously Michael Keaton as Batman is a great choice for this film. Danny Elfman is obviously a great choice for composer for this. I'm blanking on some other actors. Well, Prince, obviously, at least for me, I would not think Prince when I think of someone to do a soundtrack for a Batman movie.
And neither did Burton, and neither does Burton now, and we'll talk about that, because Burton still to this day does not like that he was strong-armed to do that as much as he likes Prince. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so much counterintuitive choices that came together and made a really unique thing.
Yeah,
It's a lot like Star Wars. It shouldn't have. It was a mistake. It shouldn't have worked. In so many ways, it shouldn't have worked.
And you can kind of see
I'm not comparing this
see that,
movie
wouldn't they?
story-wise to Star Wars. I don't mean that it's on the same level as Star Wars, but it is a piece that should not have come together like it did. It was a real dice roll. It was real lucky.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that dice roll not pay off quite as well with Returns, which I don't think is nearly as good as. And we've talked about that, so I won't go.
Yeah,
too deep into that.
But looking at the score, that is really interesting because he's creating some new motifs that he'll use to great effect in other movies. And I've talked about that before, but like Making Christmas is in that movie. You're Making Christmas, like it's all over that. And I'm pretty sure that movie comes out right before Night Before Christmas.
90. I'm so bad with dates, especially with Nightmare.
Returns is 92, and I'm pretty sure Night Before Christmas is 93 or 94.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I just wasn't quite sure.
I'll make sure I'm right about it, but I'm almost positive I'm right about it. But anyway, that's just an example where like Returns also has a pretty great score.
Yeah, and I'm not as familiar with that movie in general, and certainly not familiar with that score. I don't think I've ever listened to it on its own.
I have actually.
Is there a Batman score you haven't listened to?
Yeah, Night Before Christmas is 93. Batman Forever I've never listened to just because it wasn't available for the longest time.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I've never listened to that score all by itself.
You kind of cut out there on me for a second, but were you just saying you?
I would say I've never listened to the Batman Forever score all on its own.
Okay.
Now that I can, I should. I just never have.
Is it on Spotify? Because I was surprised by just how many like Batman related like scores.
Yeah, I'm
were
not
on
sure.
Spotify,
I'll check.
But
I'll check. I kind of live and die by Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll check on that. So can we get back to the main theme for a minute and talk about the discovery we made today?
Yeah, absolutely.
We made a fascinating discovery. I'm just looking at Batman Forever. No, that soundtrack does not seem to be on Spotify. I'll try to find that at some point. By the way, let me talk about this for a second, actually. Talking about availability of soundtracks, I think this score has been re-released on vinyl again recently.
Interesting.
And the original vinyl record, I don't know if anything's added to it or if it's just remastered and sounds better. The original record I have, and obviously it's great. One thing, I'm jumping around a little bit. I'll go back to the melody in a minute. But, Danny, one thing that I'm really confused about is what Elfman has said in interviews about the sound mixing.
Yeah, you were showing me this, and I looked at it like midway through a listen, and I was, after I read that, what you said, and I'll let you say that, but I was trying to listen for it, and I couldn't hear anything that sounded wrong to me, but I also don't have, like, a musician's ear.
I don't either, really, but I don't know what he's talking about. He says that the people that did the sound mixing just didn't care and didn't have any heart in it, and that he doesn't like the way it's mixed. And the way the interview read, because I just read it in text, it wasn't an interview I could hear. I don't think he was talking about like an early inferior mix and then they fixed it. I think he's talking about the sound mix that we got.
Yeah,
and so I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but if I'm not, that is confusing. I don't know what he's talking about.
And it very well could be one of those things where to him it is mixed poorly, like whatever he envisioned when he was originally producing, scoring it and everything. Whatever he was hearing in his head or whatever he envisioned for it just did not come to fruition, and because we were only familiar with what was released, we only have that to go off of. And to us, obviously, I don't hear any mixing issues, but maybe it's just one of those things to him, like being so involved with it, it's hard to pull yourself back and not come in with those preconceived notions about what you were originally going into it with. But I don't hear any like technical issues with the mixing.
He probably wouldn't say that the Prince album has mixing issues, so maybe he should have had Prince mix it. So yeah, I don't get that, and it's really interesting that he complained about the sound mix, but then one of the producers decided to, somewhat unprecedented, not unprecedented, but it didn't happen very much, decided to give it its own record. And that's a thing that these days we don't think anything about at all, because every score gets released now. But back then, a movie getting the orchestral score on a record was real unusual. We didn't do it that much. You'd see it for maybe some major classic soundtracks, like maybe you'd go back and put them out, and you'd see it for musicals. But for like during the movie's run, for the soundtrack to come out was really unusual. And Danny, when I was a kid, I remember it coming out late. This is kind of surreal, because I was reading this book today called $1 Billion Batman by Bruce Savali. This is a this is like an unsanctioned project. This isn't endorsed by Warner Brothers, and he put this out just before, a couple of years, I think, before Rises came out. So it goes up through Dark Knight, and it's an extensive history about the making of and the business behind all of the Screen Batman projects, including 66 Batman. I think maybe the serials are here too. And I haven't read all of this, but I was reading about the music, and he mentions that that the Prince soundtrack came out. The Prince, I guess they call it a soundtrack, but it's what we say now, Danny. It's music recorded for and inspired by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is what the Prince soundtrack is, and it came out concurrently. Actually, I think 2 or 3 days before the movie came out, which ended up being brilliant advertising. And the score didn't release until 7 weeks later, and it was still so much in the consciousness, and some of Prince's songs were still like on the Billboard, that it remained relevant. And I actually think putting it out late ended up being an accidental stroke of genius. Because I think, because I think it kept it relevant. I think it helped to keep it relevant longer. And if you went and saw this movie multiple times, you'd have that soundtrack in your head, and then suddenly it's available, and you'd go buy it. I don't think they did that on purpose, but I think it was actually kind of smart. But I remember this. We bought it when it came out, and the movie had already been in the theater for several weeks, and I was blown away by that knowledge, because I thought we just waited on it. But no, it wasn't available until we got it.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing to think about, especially with today's point of view, of where everything is like so, I don't want to say overproduced, but like mapped down almost to a T of like, we're going to put this out at this time. Nowadays, you'll often get the score like well in advance of the movie, to the point where people like go in and listen to it for like potential spoilers.
Ooh, I hate that.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah. And to think that it would come out well after, which to me makes more sense. You put it out well after, so people who have seen the movie, who have been able to experience it, can then go buy it and, kind of relive it again once it's out of theaters, or not, widely released in theaters still. It seems more logical to me to go ahead to put it out a little bit after, where it's already kind of had that initial buzz from obviously the release, and then you kind of kick it back up a little bit with a new release.
It's silly how we do things now, because we'll put out novelizations before the movie comes out. I'm like, I don't know why we do that. But with this, it was an accident, because Elfman was so late turning in the final draft of the soundtrack. He only got it done a month before the last edit was complete.
That's like CGI levels of cutting it close.
Yeah, or like hiring the voice of Kilowog in the 11th Hour for the Green Lantern movie. It's really weird when there's a movie that's about to come out and you're still hearing casting news. But anyway, so I keep staving off the theme thing I want to talk about, but we are 20 minutes in, and we've not mentioned one thing, actually in the film as we're watching it, which, again, we knew would happen, but this would be a good time to mention incidental music, because in the scene that we're watching right now, we've got Electric Chair, I believe, is the incidental track in that scene, and we've already had 2 Prince tracks in the first 20 minutes, because you've got one in, and we talked about this in another commentary, but you've got one right away with the family that gets caught in the alley that you initially think are the Wayans.
Yeah, and it's before we started doing, a commentary a day on this, I had never noticed just how much of the actual like Prince soundtrack is in this movie. I always just assumed it was Trust and Party Man, and then obviously the one at the end. But going back,
and those are the ones that are in your face and you can't help but listen to because they're actually scoring those scenes while they are also incidental music.
Yeah, and it's funny the things that you still tend to pick up on, because I hadn't noticed that was the track here until you just mentioned it. Because I've for these watch-throughs, I've had the volume down quite a bit and just mostly focusing on the subtitles.
Well, and I just remember it because I watched this movie so many times as a kid that I was already familiar with what songs were in what scenes. We'll talk about this later when we get to Alfred letting Vicky Vale into the Batcave, but I never knew until recently, it never occurred to me that Scandalous is actually part of the score, that Elfman took that track and made it the love theme. It took me a while before I finally figured that out.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the like special releases for the score includes on like a bonus or like a second remastered disc, includes Scandalous mixed in there.
Oh, interesting.
So like they just put Scandalous in between. Let me see if it says where. Okay, it doesn't say where it was included. No, actually it does. Right after Photos and Beautiful Dreamer.
Okay, I didn't know that. You know what else is really interesting? As I'm looking at the track list for Prince's album, I'm pretty sure it is ordered in the order that the songs appear in the film Because the first track is The Future, which is the incidental track in the background at the beginning, which is the hardest to notice. And then we just had Electric Chair. Arms of Orion I don't think is anywhere. Party Man, we know where that is. Of course, that's Flugelheim Museum. Vicky Waiting is somewhere, but I can't remember where. Do you know what scene that's in? Because I read something that said Vicky Waiting is in this movie, and I actually don't know where that's supposed to be. So I say The Future is the hardest to notice. Actually, I don't right off know where Vicky Waiting is.
I'd assume it's somewhere she's waiting.
That's well, and then you would assume that where that would be that scene, where she's sitting around waiting at the museum. But you know why it can't be that? Because it's classical music. And then it's Party Man right after that. But then later on in the album is Trust, and that is the last big one.
You know what would be great in the Flugelheim Museum while she's waiting? You've just got like a barbershop quartet singing the lyrics to Vicky's Waiting.
Oh, you know what? No, I know what it is. Vicky Waiting's not in the movie. It's in, and this actually is not in order. It's in the credits, because remember we talked about it.
Yep.
But I when I was reading up on this, I noticed somewhere it mentioned Vicky Waiting. I was like, where is that in the movie? Oh, no, I know exactly where that is in the movie. Never mind. So the tracks that aren't in the film are Arms of Orion, Vicky Waiting. No, I'm sorry. Vicky Waiting's is at the very end, but not in the actual movie. Lemon Crush, which is, by the way, super catchy. I like Lemon Crush a lot.
I do too, and it'd be a great product placement for like a soda. You get your Sprite. Plug in there.
Lemon Crush. And then Scandalous isn't actually in the movie, but that melody is turned again into the love theme. And then Bat Dance is not in the movie because that would be ridiculous. Although it is surprising that Bat Dance is not in the credits. You'd think it would be.
Yeah, and listening to it, I've always, obviously every time I've heard it, I've known that it's pulling so much from the 66 theme. But it's always interesting to me that he kind of gets away with doing that when they're trying so hard to get away from anything related to Adam West and 66
I think
Batman.
It's because it's poppy and it's urban and it sounds kind of creepy and mysterious.
Yeah, that very well could be, because it's such a like not clubhouse, but like house mix kind of a thing, which he was doing a bit at this time. I think this is around the time that he puts out Get Off, which has like multiple different like versions to it, and one is like a house mix. It's got kind of that same like choppiness to it, at least on one version.
Was he doing a lot of this kind of sampling also, or is it with like he does with some of the dialogue in this movie, or does he only do that so that the songs sound more like they have something to do with this movie?
So like the sampling and like the cutting into a bunch of different like samples and mixing it all together to make your beat is very big with like hip hop at the time. So I think he might have been pulling some of that influence for that, but I don't
sure,
know.
But he's not really using it for beat. He'll just like he does it more in Bat Dance, but like he'll open a lot of these tracks just like with a line from the movie, or he'll have like a line in the middle of a song, and it really sounds to me like it's just to make it sound like it is about this film, because some of these tracks don't seem to have anything to do with anything in this movie.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of because it is for a soundtrack. Like I think that's why it's in there. Is to let you know that it's connected to this. Like if this was just a album he put out, I don't know if you'd have like some kind of like sample from anything else thrown in there. Like I doubt he'd like grab like a radio sample somewhere to. So
we're watching Batman in the chemical plant again for the 6th time, and this is a great example of Elfman syncopating that theme in different ways, and having different parts of the melody lengthened or shortened so that it doesn't again get annoying and feel like we're hearing exactly the same thing every time. Sometimes it's da na 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 na, and sometimes it's da na 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 na, and then when you see Shirley Walker take the theme and syncopate it differently again for 89, there's a bit in this scene where it's the closest to what Shirley Walker does with the theme for animated series. After a while, it starts to feel like that show has a different theme. It is this theme, but it's arranged differently.
Yeah, and speaking of Shirley Walker, I'm trying to find the name because I just scrolled away from it. But, yeah, so this would be First Confrontation. Yes. This is when I was listening to just this score, I was catching so many of those, like, little details that, like, early Batman the Anime Series is picking up on. Just certain cadences to how it will transition from that theme into something else. Which, because I'm not so much of a music guy, I always just kind of took it as she's taking the same thing until I kind of started to listen to it a little bit more on its own, Batman the Animated Series on its own, and try to listen for where it varies and where it changes and where she takes her own liberties with it. But yeah, listening to like very early On Leather Wings, Christmas with the Joker, you hear a lot of that same kind of I guess the word I used was cadence for how it's transitioning from the theme to.
It's very interesting to listen to the evolution of the soundtrack of that show, because I have been going back and rewatching Batman the Animated Series in preparation for new Bat Chats, and I noticed something I had never noticed before. Now, watch you go back to early Bat Chats, and I bring this up, and I just don't remember that I talked about it. But not only are some of those cadences there, but she gets away from them later, and it very much becomes her own thing. It sounds like she's trying to do Elfman at the beginning. I would argue that it's exactly the same thing as the evolution of Capullo's drawing on Spawn, where at the beginning, Capullo is trying to ape McFarlane because that's what everybody likes, and McFarlane doesn't have time to draw, so he brings in somebody that looks like him, and after a while he develops his own style and he's allowed to go his own way. That is exactly what Shirley Walker does with her score. Because if you go listen to the first, 5 or 6 episodes, and specifically the ones you were talking about, On Leather Wings and Christmas with the Joker, and even like the Scarecrow episode, there are bits that sound exactly lifted, particularly from the fight in the Flugelheim Museum. And I say fight, I guess the escape in the rescue in the Flugelheim Museum. It's almost like she has a rule later on not to sound like Elfman exactly.
Yeah,
and she starts to sound a little bit more like his influences, I would argue. Because he's going back and, like I said, listening to old Hollywood. He's doing, like, noirs and detective things from the 40s. I think that's part of what gives this movie such a timeless feel. And we should talk about the whole Prince thing and whether or not it dates it, because that's a fun debate. But, like, I think she's going a little bit even more pure and going to those influences. And it is interesting looking at that evolution.
I think it's definitely kind of showcases the benefit of working on a television show compared to a film franchise.
Absolutely.
Where you got so much time to like really hone your craft, find a new avenue, get creative with what you are doing, and kind of evolve it to fit how that show is going to go, or find yourself as a composer. And it's really, like, to me, it's very interesting to kind of see that as like an evolution of her growth as a composer, I guess you could say, and just to see how much her take on this basis really can help define what that show becomes later on with its own legacy.
And she probably just started to feel more comfortable letting it go its own way and do its own thing, because the score at the beginning of that show sounds like it's being made for a show that is trying to approximate this movie. Because we do that with a lot of animated series that are based on films in the first place, where like we want to sort of dupe the kids into thinking that they're getting to see their favorite movie every week, even though it's like a lesser version. It's not as good. It's kind of dumbed down. Animated series is exactly the opposite of that. It is more sophisticated material much of the time than what we're watching here, and is not trying to be this movie. But of course, as we've talked about a lot, it gets made because of this movie, and it uses that theme, and it brings in certain things like still calling, the Joker Jack Napier and stuff like that. But it doesn't sound like it doesn't watch like a sad approximation.
No, and it really, when you look at like the evolution of her working as a composer for that, you can kind of see where it might have started off as a like directive from Warner Brothers. Hey, use this soundtrack, work, you can move from it a little bit, but stay close here. And then as the show grows, as they get more trust in the show and all the people involved in it, she's got more of a creative license to go her own direction or to
And you're right,
on
it could have been a mandated thing. I think it's just as likely. I just cannot believe that we're watching this movie and I'm not making fun of that table again. It is just crazy to have a commentary about this movie where I'm not saying, "Why can't you please pass the salt?" Anyway, it's like a tradition now.
What would be great?
Danny and I have a special tradition. I think you and I should every year sit down once a year and watch 89 and make fun of that table.
Oh man, I'd love to get a table that long, and also have like, how some tables have like that middle piece that you can expand the table out and put the middle piece in so it's longer. It'd be great if that table had that. Just like,
wouldn't it be great if we're talking about this again? Wouldn't it be great if it did have that? You just couldn't see the seams, and Alfred was just being a jerk. Like, we made fun of him already for, like, setting them at that table in the first place. Wouldn't it be great if it was shorter and he intentionally put that plank in the middle as if they were having 30 people over for like a business meeting or a banquet? That's hilarious.
Oh man. What would be even
I want to do
funnier
that parody.
As if at the charity event, he hadn't set it up like that, so it's just barely got enough room for 2 people at it. While all these people are at Wayne Manor. There's only room at this table for 2.
So what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by the side of that table, and stupid lines like, "Did you have trouble finding the house?" Do you think that it's also possible that at the beginning she was just trying to be really respectful to the composer whose music she was rearranging, because she works on this movie? I mean, keep in mind that she is she's the conductor of the orchestra.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a very strong possibility. And I haven't looked too much into like whether there was any like actual mandates before I said anything about maybe it was the studio mandate thing. But I think it's very possible when you go into something that you were a part of but not the creator of, to then be put in a position where you have to be the creator of in a new sense to try to be as respectful to the original as possible and to not deviate too far and still let the piece be the original piece that it was, while still trying to put your own little stamp on it.
Yeah. People who hate this movie and wish it was more like Batman the Animated Series, I always like to point out that I get that this story is a little bit incomprehensible and that these characters are not really well drawn, and we've talked about all of that. But I think it's important to note, as I've talked about a lot, that you have to have, of course, this movie before you have that series, and that you have to give Elfman credit for even helping to make that series what it is, because not only is that theme iconic and wonderful, and I'm glad that it was rearranged for that series, but also you don't get Shirley Walker in that show if you don't have this movie. Even if there was a Batman show somehow without this movie, you wouldn't get Walker, because she composed this, or sorry, because she was the orchestra conductor. She wouldn't have gotten that gig.
No, certainly, and I think just the music as its own is more of an influence on that cartoon series.
It sure is. Than anything else in this movie.
Yeah, outside of maybe, like, certain visuals. Like, the gothic look of Gotham in the animated series is certainly derived some from this, but it's not like gothic architecture.
It is, and that show really makes you wish there were blimps in this movie.
Oh, man. Like, this would be a perfect scene. You just have the blimp going across the background. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, right, that'd be great.
We need special editions that just CGI in.
Now, we could make the assumption that they have the blimps and we just don't see them, and that when Grissom is looking out the window there, when we're looking at the window behind him, that building that has the red blinking light, it's directing blimps. You know? Like, that's possible. That could be why that light's there. There's blimps. See that light back there? You see it?
Yeah.
See, there's a light there. See, there's blimps. This is directing them. Yep. But yeah, I think this, we're talking about this.
Long tables and blimps.
Long tables and blimps in our music commentary for 89. I think that this is an obvious statement, but that the music in both this movie and the animated series are like integral to the success of both.
Yeah. I think the music is probably one of the most important factors of this film, as far as just making it kind of stand the test of time.
I'll go as far to say I think more people would have noticed stuff that doesn't work in this movie if it didn't have this good of a soundtrack.
That's you're probably not wrong about that, because the same could probably be said with Spider-Man.
The waltz, the waltz. Well, and I meant to mention Spider-Man earlier, because when I was talking about how like Elfman repeats himself a lot, but like he still has wonderful soundtracks, and later on, and obviously Spider-Man is great and doesn't sound like this. There's little bits where you can be okay, that's the same conductor, but like, or that's the same composer, but it is really important also to that movie, and isn't exactly like anything you've heard before. So this waltz is the closest thing we get to a theme for the Joker. When Elfman talks about this movie, he sounds almost a little bit frustrated that he didn't get to do more with the Joker, because the Prince songs are played mostly in Joker scenes and end up scoring those, and so he doesn't really get to do a lot with that. But I would argue that the waltz counts as the theme for the Joker. He doesn't get to orchestrate it a lot. He doesn't get to weave it in and out of things. I'm not sure with that you could as much. That's this big bombastic marching waltz. I don't know if you want to hear that like reorchestrated in a bunch of different. I don't know if you want the like really subtle in the background.
Just try mixing that with Beautiful Dreamer later on.
And I guess he does do that a little bit later, but it's in the church scene. But it's part of that larger piece where like we just keep going in and out of it, but like to just get that in like random places in the background, it would be strange. I'm glad that that's not playing every time Joker walks out. So like maybe I'm talking myself out of my argument. Maybe it shouldn't count as the Joker's theme, because it would be ridiculous if it was playing, say, during the mime sequence. Like you need all the bass stuff, all the kind of creepy bass stuff they're doing in that scene. The bum 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 bum. Like that scores that wonderfully. If the mimes are walking around and we're hearing,
well, I'm going.
The
back
pen
to
is mightier than the sword. Bum, 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 bum.
jumping back to Batman the Animated Series, I'm kind of glad that Joker doesn't have like that definitive score in this movie the way the Batman does.
Because she's able to write one for him?
Yeah, because I love the da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. That's like my favorite bit of music from Batman the Animated Series. So I'm glad, if for anything, this movie doesn't have like the definitive Joker score, so we could later on get what I consider like the definitive like Joker score.
I think the waltz is so good, it's hard to believe he wrote it. When I was a kid, I assumed that, like Beautiful Dreamer, somehow, or rather, I guess I knew that was a piece of music that existed before. Maybe I read that somewhere. I don't know. But I thought the waltz was like Beautiful Dreamer and was a piece that they licensed for this movie. I didn't know he wrote it.
No, I had the same thought. Like, I kind of thought that was like the motif you deal with Jokers. Okay, what he had for the Jokers. I'll take classical pieces of music and pervert them for this character.
Yeah, they just went and found circus music or something.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I used to mix up the melody of that waltz with the underwater music for Super Mario Brothers. Da na 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 da na 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 na. It's really close. They're both waltzes. Ba na 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 ba na 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 na. And sometimes I just want to go back to these scenes and put that under it. Or do like because that's been done with a big orchestra. That would be a fun video to make. Go find like the big bombastic Mario water music and then put it under Napier or Joker killing Grissom. That'd be great.
No, you put it when his hand's coming out of the water after he falls into the tank of acid. He's coming out of the water and you just got the water theme playing.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah. Okay, so in a scene with not any music in it right now, maybe finally I should go to the thing I was going to say like 20, 30 minutes ago about the theme, which I meant to talk about at the very beginning when we were talking about the theme, but the movie has directed us in different places now. I was flabbergasted to discover upon going back and listening to, and by going back I mean listening to for the first time closely, the theme from the titles, I should say, from the original 1943 serials, that Elfman was not only somewhat inspired by that, as I've read about a little bit, that he said in interviews that was the thing that he looked at, and he was looking at serials and detective movies and things, noir things from that period in general, and he took that kind of music and made it more triumphant. So it's still dark and it's still it's still tragic, but it also has this somewhat uplifting but still in a minor key like triumphant superhero thing in it. It does all that at the same time. He went back and started his Batman theme from that 43 theme. The first 3 of the 6-note melody is the same as the very, 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 very beginning of the opening credits now. Now, unlike Elfman, we don't keep hearing it. It goes into a different main titles, but it opens with ba-na-na, and then it goes its own way from this. I mean, obviously, it starts it. But that goes down, and Elfman goes up, and it changes the entire timbre of it. It's fascinating, and I didn't know that, and I've never heard anybody talk about this.
No, and I'm, like, before we started this, I'm so glad you brought that up to me, because that's such a cool little bit of trivia that I've never heard anyone else talk about. And to go back and listen to it, because it's like right once it starts, like it immediately goes into those 3 notes. It's such a cool thing to hear, like a very, very rudimentary beginning to the, and obviously it was its own thing. It was envisioned as a part of what it ultimately becomes when Danny Elfman's working on this. But it's so cool to go back and hear something like that is so, I guess the word I used was rudimentary, but so its own completely separate idea. It's such a completely different direction to go for it, and then to hear like that evolution of it eventually become the thing that everyone knows and loves.
the really creepy music we're hearing here, by the way, which is wonderfully subtle, but actually one of my favorite bits in the this stuck with me for some reason. Just the I don't even know how to put it. Just the creepy, high pitched like woodwind stuff. It's or like piccolo, or whatever instrument that is. That is listed in the soundtrack as "Roasted Dude."
I noticed that, and I love the idea of a full orchestral set being called "Roasted Dude."
Yeah, I mean it's only a few instruments because it's a real subtle bit, but yeah.
Still, like a full, not a full orchestra, but an orchestra recording something called "Roasted Dude." I just love that. I just love the idea.
But yeah, it's fascinating to me that he went back to the serial like that, and this is the way, obviously, a lot of great art is made, where you're influenced by what came before, and then you bring yourself to it, and you make something else totally new out of it. So I'm not bringing that up to say, look, Elfman just ripped off that score. More than 50% of that melody is his. And then, or I guess 50% of it, 50% of that 6-note melody is his. And then obviously he's running off with that and doing totally different things. But it is the difference between a straight up like dark noir piece and a superhero piece.
Yeah, and we're hearing bits of which one is it? Is it photos, or is it descent into mystery right now? No, it's
no. Photos is when
Flowers.
We're seeing the Joker with the photos. This is the flower bit.
Yeah, my bad. I was looking at the track listing, and it's out of order from what's actually.
Yeah, the soundtrack has it out of order from the sequences of the scenes in the film. I don't know why that is. It's really strange.
Yeah, and I completely lost whatever train of thought I had going from the original serials theme. So
well, I don't know. I'll
Sorry
talk about this. This music is sad and somber and lovely. I like it a lot. But it's still grand. Like, you get the few moments that we actually kind of sit and breathe and have almost human moments, Danny, in this film. It is still a big grand theatrical experience. Going back and re-listening to the soundtrack today, I longed to go back to the theater and see this again. I saw it, and it being the 30th anniversary this year, surely somebody will play it somewhere and I'll get to go see it again.
It'd be a great Fathom event.
Yeah, well, I think what I saw was Fathom, or it might have just been my local theater with. They don't do this anymore, but the one of my local theaters anyway, the Cinemark that I used to go to, it used to have like a weekly different classic movie they played like twice a week, and they don't, or maybe it was like 6 times a month or something. I forget. They don't do it anymore, and it's really sad. Now it's all Fathom, but. Yeah, maybe that wasn't Fathom. I'm not sure. But anyway, that was in 2016. And like I said, it being the 30th anniversary, God, somebody's got it. Surely Fathom's going to do it.
Yeah, just with the 30th anniversary of it in general.
We did it for Superman, and we did it for Phantasm. We did it for Phantasm!
Which makes sense because they were also trying to plug the Blu-ray.
They weren't
release.
plugging anything with Superman, though. So hopefully we'll get lucky with Batman that just because it's the anniversary, they'll do it. I mean, this movie has, in some ways, fallen out of popularity compared to, because you've got Batman movies that were bigger than it and that people take more seriously. Like I don't think a lot of people would disagree that obviously it remains iconic and fundamental, but like I think a lot of people don't think it holds up as well as like Superman does, and things like Jurassic Park and stuff that you see all the time at Fathom. Like anytime you have an anniversary, every 5 years Jurassic Park will go back to the theater because it's an anniversary. This is not getting that treatment, and that's maybe fair. I wish it would, but that's maybe fair.
Yeah, I'd love if this became kind of a re-enters into what would be considered cult classic the way 66 has fallen back into favor.
Yeah.
I'd love the opportunities to come along for an animated film set in the Batman 89, Batman Returns type of vibe, I'd
Me
love to
too.
see.
But one of the reasons that I think that's a harder thing to see happen is because part of what helped 66 was sudden merchandising of a thing that couldn't be merchandised for the longest time, and we've had 89 merchandise this whole time.
Yeah,
you can still very easily go out and buy brand new Batman 89 merchandising, and that has been the case for 30 years.
Yeah,
there's always stuff.
Yeah, they're. I mean, they're still pumping out new. Is it NECA that does those really nice 89 figures?
Yep.
Yeah. One of these days, I'll get my hands on one of those.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that this has nothing to do with music, but the Hot Toys Joker, maybe I've talked about this before with all the cool accessories it has. One of the accessories it has is that pin that he kills that guy with.
Yeah.
With the feather.
Don't they have two versions, like normal Joker and like the purple suit, and then a mime specific?
I think there is a mime one. Yeah, maybe that's what has that. I probably actually mentioned this even this week on these commentaries, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it all blends together.
And I'm sure some of the stuff we're talking about music we brought up before too, because remember on the first day we were like, okay, don't bring up the music too much because we know we're going to do a music commentary.
So
and alas.
And finally, here we are, day 6, finally talking about the music. So, in keeping with
It feels like it's been so long.
It feels like a real Batman year.
I want to go back to the waltz for just a second. Don't you think that is a stroke of genius and has a lot to do with why that scene is funny?
The one we were just seeing.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
I just didn't get a chance to talk about this much earlier, so I'm bringing it up now. I'm backtracking. But when we kill Grissom, I just think that's kind of genius.
Yes, it plays so well into. Obviously, it's our first look at Joker, but it plays so well into setting like the mood of what this type of Joker will be, where he's playful but extremely, dangerous because he's playing around and being very lackadaisical and goofy, and then poof, shooting a guy like 5 or 6 times.
And it invites us to look at things from his perspective, so what he's doing is terrible, but you can't help but laugh at it, because it is a Joker that's funny, and obviously Nicholson was just the right guy for that, and it's weird and twisted. And I mean, people complain that this Joker, compared to other better ones later, isn't twisted enough, but for this material at the time, there aren't a lot of movies where you're laughing while watching a guy shoot a guy, and it's just funny.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that.
And I think that score there has a lot to do with why that's funny.
Yeah, and I think that's something we kind of miss with modern interpretations of Joker. We kind of leave out the funny part of him. He's just sadistic. I like a Joker who's sadistic with a sense of humor at the same time. It just adds to the sadism of his character.
And of course, Dark Knight had that, but it didn't use the score at all for that. The score is always creepy and not melodic at all.
Yeah, which is a good thing that they don't completely switch it up just for the sake of doing what's been done before, Justice League does, which is just the most egregious use of the Batman film score or soundtrack theme ever. I just cannot.
I want to think that the Joker. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to think that the Joker forces his henchmen to whistle all the time when they're working.
That's in the interview process for becoming a goon.
Can you whistle? No, and then you get shot in the head, and then they go on to somebody else. Do you, again, this has nothing to do with music, but I just thought of this because this is not a thing I've brought up before, but do you think part of the reason that that people don't see this Joker as the kind of perversion in other side of the coin as Batman that he famously is in modern day is partly because we don't get those examples of we get examples of him doing horrible things early on, but it's never to the men he's working with, right? He shoots Bob toward the end, but there's never that token scene of oh, this guy pissed me off, so I'm gonna bump him off right away. He doesn't seem as, I don't know, when he kills people it seems more calculated, right?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like
at any moment he could do anything.
Yeah, his murders of at least a henchman or something is never of I'm bored with you and I think it would be funny to kill you, or the joke has run its course, so now it's time to kill you type of a thing.
Even I'm glad you're dead looks like he might have walked into that room planning on doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah, this is certainly a more sane interpretation of the Joker, I guess you could say.
But I think it comes off more sane than they intended it to.
Yeah, it's...
I really do. I think there's some miscommunication happening there. And this we have talked about, but part of that is because we're not actually relating to our protagonist.
No, and we're trying to spend so much time with our antagonist. It's about two
crazy people. When Tim Burton has talked about the themes of this movie, which is hard to say with a straight face, he has talked about it as, and I always resist, by the way, artists like explaining their own work, but the way he's described it is it's about two men who find freedom in working outside of a system, and the laws don't apply to them, and you see the two sides of that kind of freedom. That, like, that's what it's about.
I don't personally buy it with this film. I mean,
sounds like a thing you say kind of retroactively, right? Like,
yeah, it sounds like something that you would say once you're influenced by work that's come after you. Like, I don't get that from this piece, but I could see him coming to that after Returns and the influence this movie has had on Batman in general. Like, I don't know. I don't see, like, this movie being made as, like, the the two sides of the coin type of thing in that aspect.
I really enjoyed your inarticulate response to that quote.
Yeah. I was playing around with that Joker, like that buzzer thing that he roasted the dude with.
I want one of those. Not necessarily one that works, but
no, just it's a nice little jolt. That's all I need.
I mean, with my and Eric's history with shock balls, if I got one, it probably wouldn't even actually shock anyone. So,
which is the real shocker.
That's the shocker. So, is there a Batman soundtrack after this that, movie-wise, like, forgetting Shirley Walker, that, like, really surpasses this for you? Or do you feel like me and looking at this and Begins in Dark Knight are kind of apples and oranges?
Yeah, because there are such different ideas for what a score should be, or maybe not should be, but what it can do for the piece. Like, this one's much more of a piece, whereas Begins, Dark Knight, Rises, it's meant to, like, accent the film, or what you're seeing. It's meant to accent the visuals, whereas this can be listened to as, like, its own thing. And I know you particularly can go back to the Begins, the Dark Knight theme, or I guess the scores for it. I've just never had that with those themes. I mean,
I listen to the Begins soundtrack frequently, but it is for mood and atmosphere.
Yeah.
This I listen to like music. That I listen to like give myself motivation.
Yeah, and I think that's like the perfect description of what that type of score is for.
Absolutely,
like, the music in there is not to be a, like, bombastic piece on its own, the way that the Batman theme can be, and I think works very well as. It's very much to set the tone of, like, okay, here's a chase on the Batmobile. Here is, a fight with the Scarecrow or something to that effect.
Yeah, and it kind of disappears and recedes into the piece. The Begin soundtrack does. Zimmer's score, to the point where there are bits in the movie that I thought were sound effects added later that I was surprised to hear when I listened to the score. This is, I think, let me see if I can articulate this. I think the difference is, this is about the, it enhances the spectacle by creating its own spectacle. And, this is all about the visuals. And, it's all about the visual ideas and motifs and that stuff. And Begins is a psychological movie, and interestingly, the soundtrack ends up being more, I don't know if amorphous is the right word, but like it's less musical, it's less melodic, because it's about feeling like Batman, because you're, and understanding, like, the music helps to appreciate the drive and determination of that character, and you're in his head, and interestingly, almost ironically, getting in that character's head, you have this more amorphous thing, whereas here, as we're being, like, blocked off from our protagonist, the soundtrack itself takes on its own life.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it. You put it into words much, see, I can't even do it, much better than I could have. But yeah, that's always, anytime I go back to Begins or Dark Knight, that's what I always think of, is it's less music, more so than, like, if I were in this guy's head, I would kind of be hearing this in, like, the background of, like, just life. Like, it's like music created for my emotions. Whereas
if you really let yourself get taken in by it, and you're really paying attention to it, like it is, that score is, I'm talking about the Nolan score. That score is really easy to listen to just as background music, but if you start paying attention to it, you start noticing all the interesting musical nuances in it. But this is a concert by its in and of itself. The Begin soundtrack isn't that. It's more elemental than that. I am desperate to go see an orchestra you play this soundtrack, and I've never gotten to do that, but that is the thing I really want to do. I don't know if even I would want to sit through an orchestra playing the Begin soundtrack.
See, I'm not much of an orchestra guy. Like, live music, it just isn't my forte, and it's not something I've ever really had an interest in. But given the choice between the two, I'd much rather sit through this. Like, and I mean, it
would be fine to watch a live scoring of the movie. If you're watching the movie with a live orchestra, that's awesome. But just to listen to an orchestra concert that was just playing this without the stuff on the screen, it would be great. And there are, which is really interesting, because the other difference between the two scores is, this is scored like a cartoon. Not that it's jokey, but that it's looking specifically at the scenes and accenting particular moments. And the Begin soundtrack is not doing that as much. Like, it knows when certain things are happening, and you got, like, the super creepy, scratchy stuff when Batman is first getting hit with fear toxin and things like that. But it doesn't have those, like, orchestral stings like old Hollywood and cartoons did that this does. And that's the other thing, is that they're coming from two different modes and two different eras. Not because this is so many years before Begins, but because this is scored like a movie that came out in the 40s.
Yeah. They're very much, I don't want to say products of their time, because this is obviously pulling from well before its time, but it's very much products of the idea of the type of movie that they're trying to be. Like, this is very much trying to go back to kind of the old cinema in a lot of different respects that we've talked about before, like with the gun sound effects. Like, it's pulling a lot from, like, old Hollywood, like, noir type of stuff, whereas Begins is very much trying to be a modern piece.
And with the way he orchestrates the love theme and some other things, like, it's not just noir pieces, it's like old Hollywood in general. It's like dramas, it's romances. Like the big, broad sweeping, like, you want surround sound, you want to experience this in a theater. It's bombastic, it's grandiose, it's not realistic. It is emotionally manipulative in the very best kind of way. And the big thing that both of these soundtracks have most in common, historically anyway, so many movies after them for a decade or more were trying to be exactly the soundtrack.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
both of them.
You can definitely pinpoint, like, blockbuster type of, like, film scoring as, like, after Batman 89, and, like, after Begins, because you get so much of that.
And especially Dark Knight, because you got that, like, 3-year period where Begins is kind of a blip on the radar, and there are a couple of movies where you're like, okay, somebody did watch Begins, but, like, especially after Dark Knight always gets credit for that. But, like, most of what they're doing, especially the driving, like, bum, 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 and then bum, 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 bum. Like, we just do, like, okay, actually, that was weirdly actually sounded more like Elfman. That actually sounded more like the, dun, 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 dun. Life's so fun without a good scare. Okay, well, anyway, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. That all comes after Dark Knight, but started in Begins. That's where Zimmer did that in the first place.
Yes, it begins and begins.
It does. It begins. It starts and begins.
Whereas conversely, this ends with Begins.
Right. Sure. I cannot imagine this scene without Party Man. I can't imagine it.
Yeah, it
makes this scene for me.
Yeah, and I think it's because it ties in so well with what Elfman is doing with the score in general. Like,
do you
that
think?
feeling. I think so. I think it's so because of how bombastic Party Man is. It kind of feels consistent with what the rest of the movie is doing, at least for me.
See, I don't know about that. I mean, like Party Man is, for Prince, a big song, but I don't know if I would call it bombastic. Like, it's energetic, but, like, it's his, for his more, like peppier stuff, it's kind of typical for him. I think that Prince and Elfman are anachronistic, and weirdly, that's part of why it works, because all of the and it sounds like again, Burton doesn't really agree with that, and feels like that music dated this too much. He was worried it would date it, and I think he still thinks that from everything I've read. I can see both sides of that argument, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about that and see how you feel about it, and if the Prince soundtrack dates it too much. What's really interesting is the fact that people don't notice a lot of the incidental music in this movie tells you something, because it's all made by the same guy, and it's not, and people aren't taken out going, oh my god, all of the music in this, like, timeless universe is made by Prince! All of it!
Yeah, I don't know if it dates it, but I don't know. Maybe it does date it, but it doesn't strike me like if you got, like, an 80s hair metal band to do a theme for this. Like, it feels of its time in a good way, where it's like you're pulling something that is modern for the time, but not so modern where it immediately, like 2 years later, it would be outdated. Real
quick, I just noticed something I've never noticed before. Batman comes out the door, and he turns around, and he swings his arm like he throws something, and then we cut to something to where does he get those wonderful commentaries? I mean, toys, and then we cut back, and then he just runs off to the Batmobile with Vicky Vale. Was there something that was... Is that what it was? Okay,
yeah,
I thought maybe, he threw a batarang or something, like... He threw a smoke bomb?
Yeah, when the goons are running out, you can see all the smoke that there is coming out with them.
Oh, okay. Maybe I knew that, and just in the moment here, I'm like, what did he throw? Okay, well, anyway, so that was a waste of the last 40 seconds. I just never noticed he threw something there. But anyway.
So, sticking with Prince, because this is something I was trying to think about. Like,
can I just say this is some of the best score in the whole movie?
Oh, absolutely.
Just this whole scene, it's wonderful. And again, this is where we're scoring like a cartoon, right? We're looking at every single second of what's going on and writing to that.
Yeah. This is Charge of the Batmobile, right?
Charge of the Batmobile.
Yep. This is one of the ones that definitely, aside from just like the Batman theme in its normal state, this is always the one that, like, immediately sticks out to me.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I just had to say that. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I think the thought I was going to was, like, if there was, like, a modern Batman, like, if you were to take the idea of, like, having, like, Prince do a theme for a soundtrack for Batman in, like, 2019, who would be the artist that you go to of, like, that would be kind of like this similar instance as, like, getting a Prince in 1989 would be?
I don't know, because I don't keep up with popular music anymore. it's hard to say now. But like, wouldn't it be weird if you had like Imagine Dragons do Batman? Like,
oh man, I don't want that. That'd be awful.
No, me neither. But that's the thing is,
just imagine Radioactive when Joker falls into the pit or into the not the pit. He doesn't fall into a Lazarus pit.
But I don't hate that group. And when they started, I don't think everything sounded like them. I think we got to a place after that where kind of everything sounds like that, or at least a lot of things sound like that. But I don't want to talk about modern pop because I'm not keeping up enough, and I'm going to sound real ignorant. So I don't want to go there. But I think the difference between Prince and maybe somebody like that you do now is Prince's 80s music. Going back and looking at the 80s. You can say, oh, that's so 80s, but compared to a lot of the other things that are going on at the time, and even like Michael Jackson or something, you can call him broadly pop, but I think he's vaguely unclassifiable.
Yeah, he certainly dabbles in like different genres or different like
he's hard
ideas.
To nail down, and I think that's part of why it works. I don't think that's why they got him. I think they got him because he was popular and he was gettable and he liked Batman and he wanted to do it. Yeah. And Warner Brothers thought that he would help sell tickets, and he was enthusiastic, and he came up with the idea of doing the soundtrack, as far as I understand it. And Warner's got all gung ho about it, was obsessed with it, and Burton didn't want them to do that because he was afraid that it would date the movie too much. I think they got lucky that it worked as well as it did, and I think without Prince, this movie does not make as much money as it does. I think again the stars aligned and it worked. But looking back on it, does it date the movie too much? I find it very difficult to say. I can't think of another artist that would have been as unclassifiable and helped to date it less, being that popular, and that would have helped sell tickets the way he did.
Yeah,
that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that because I kind of go back and forth on the idea of whether it dates it or not. Like I think ultimately at the end of the day, like it puts a timestamp on it, but it's not like a poorly dated thing. Like like when you go back to like 03 Daredevil, it's just a bunch of like post-grunge, post-new metal type of
and at rock. Least that was a movie, even though it was stylized, that wasn't trying to be like out of time. It was set in the year it was set in. Spider-Man more so.
Yeah.
Certainly, but like this is not set in the year it's set in. This is set all over the place, and it looks like the 40s with technology of the 80s. And then a bunch of other stuff kind of mixed in, in between. And the big risk was throwing a popular, recognizable artist in it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have made that choice, but it certainly doesn't hurt the film, at least for me.
Yeah, and what's weird is, so let's talk about Prince's soundtrack a little bit. Although I also want to talk about this scene because this is also, so I mean, it's easy. Every scene I'm like, this is my favorite music. This is the stuff that as a kid stuck with me the most. I find this the most mysterious and eerie and was in my head when I'd go to sleep at night after I saw this movie when I was 6 years old.
Which one is this? Is this Descent into Misery? Mystery?
I'm looking. Yeah. This is Descent into Mystery. I called it. I said mysterious. And obviously Elfman agrees with me because that's what he put in the title. But yeah, this has some of the biggest bombastic use of the Batman theme, and this is the stuff I want to see an orchestra play. This is the very end of it. The end of the film, the music right at the end when we're going up the building and we see Batman in his pose where he's posing for a picture that nobody took. We harken back to this. You're actually right now hearing the music that will end the film.
Yeah, this is the reprise for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just trying to go off the...
I mean, I'm not saying that we just rip this straight up and put it at the end, but it's orchestrated the same. We will reprise that, except we'll put bells on it. And then we have the big triumphant ending with the bomb ding, and it's some of my favorite stuff. It's wonderful. Also, has it ever occurred to you that all of the church bell stuff is foreshadowing for the giant church bell.
And now that you actually say it,
at the
it
end,
makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah,
he is priming us for that scene through the whole film.
Awesome. It's almost like he's hitting us in the head with the church bell.
He sure is, and it's not overused by any stretch. But it's some of my favorite stuff. And it helps to give it obviously that gothic flavor. This music is so in tune with the look of the movie, which makes a lot of sense because he took his main inspiration from going to the set at night and walking around. And he's seeing all these, big gothic sets that they make to make this what's supposed to be a giant city that's actually just in like a 1-block radius. And he goes and he sees all this complicated Gothic architecture, and he gives you all this like church organ stuff, and he's using church bells, and it's great.
Yeah, I had up until like listening to this and like listening to the soundtrack for the first, not for the first time obviously, but like
for the last time.
But going back and re-listening to it with the intent of like kind of studying it in preparation for this, there were certain things that really stuck out to me. It's like, oh yeah, this is maybe not so much a setup for this, but this is where this will eventually go when we get to this scene or this part of the movie or this, this setting.
It's real organic, right? Like, it's real logical. The soundtrack, I'll say this, the soundtrack is written in a way that the script is absolutely not, or was changed a lot, right? Like, it feels like he wrote it in a way like a character-driven soundtrack, and we didn't, I don't actually mean that. I don't, you know what I mean? But like, it's like he wrote his score like a character-driven writer would write a good script, insofar as he's allowing those main themes and motifs and ideas. He's got certain instruments and especially the main theme, certain themes that he's making his main characters for what he's for the art he's making, and he lets them drive his thing.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that.
I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that's how I feel about it. That's what I think he's doing. Okay, so let's talk about more with Prince's soundtrack. As an album, like just forgetting the movie, like as an album, do you like it? Is it good? Is it solid? Does it hold together?
I certainly think so. I'm a fan of Prince, so I.
Oh, that's good. That helps.
Prince,
yeah, I'm not a big Prince fan personally.
Oh man,
I don't dislike Prince. I'm not a big fan. I've not gone back and listened to a lot of his albums.
Well, up until recently, it's been very hard to go back and listen to him. So.
Until he passed away. Yes, it wasn't on Spotify, Prince's music, for the longest time, and for a while it was, and I had the soundtrack from this movie saved, of course, with like my list of soundtracks of albums that I save in my playlist would be like no surprise to a lot of people. Like it's I would be really predictable if you looked at my playlist. But anyway, it was in there for the longest time, and then when Spotify removes an album and you made a playlist of it, your playlist will stay there, but just all the tracks are missing.
Yeah, they'll like gray out the track.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll do this a lot of time with like full albums where they'll put like the deluxe one on there, and all the songs that are supposed to be deluxe that they don't have the rights to are just grayed out, so it's no different than if you pulled up the regular version of the album.
All of the Daredevil soundtrack used to be on Spotify, and now like a quarter of it is left.
Yeah, and that
for some reason.
Which is weird because I know with Prince, the reason it was probably taken off Spotify was because he signed an exclusive deal with Tidal, Jay-Z's streaming service, when that launched, and for the longest time that was the only.
Same thing happened with the Beatles at one time.
Well, yeah, they were exclusive to Apple Music when they finally got put on streaming, but digital platforms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're back on Spotify now.
Yeah. Luckily, I've got a giant collection of actual Beatles records because my grandfather was a huge Beatles fan.
Oh, that's cool. You've probably got some rare stuff that's worth some money.
Probably. I haven't got anything like that appraised. Like, I don't have any like plans to sell anything, but he's got McFarlane he had McFarlane figures that were still in the box from the Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. Did you get it all vinyl or is it CD?
He collected everything Beatles. So there's VHSs, there's CDs.
That's cool.
Vinyl.
Oh yeah, and you got to keep it all.
I've kept most of it. I think there might have been a few things that we gave away, but we've got the majority of what he had, or that was left to us at least.
Danny, you know, a normal person sits down and writes a score, and isn't stuck having to like give certain scenes to Prince, you know. No, I guess that kind of thing actually happens a lot more now, right? Like, how lucky are we, and was this movie that Burton won out and ultimately was not forced, even though Warner Brothers really wanted him to make most of the soundtrack incidental? Because I don't know if you know that, but they wanted the whole score to be Prince and Michael Jackson.
It's a really a good thing that didn't happen, because I think
that much music might have been great, of course. Yeah. And I mean, like we like the Prince music, and we'll go back to the Prince soundtrack because there's stuff I don't like on it, and we'll talk about it. But like, it might have been great, and it was supposed to be like a dueling thing where like one of them is cast as Batman and one of them is cast as the Joker, and like they're dueling through the music. It's kind of an interesting idea, but it would have been against the flavor that Burton was going for the film, I think.
I think it would have been ultimately a detriment to what this film is going for, and it would have probably pulled kind of like what we were talking about, where if this the Elfman score wasn't there, you'd notice a lot of the faults with it. I think it would have pulled that to the focus if you don't have such a grand score to kind of I guess set the tone and kind of keep you in that moody atmosphere. Because I just the dueling idea is kind of cool, but I don't want to hear like either Batman or Joker have music that goes hee hee from Michael Jackson in it. That would just...
Which is hilarious because, as I understand it, or at least the way Prince tells it, Prince would have been the Joker. So that means that the hee hee parts would have been Batman music. Yeah, it just doesn't make a great deal of sense.
No, I'm just trying to imagine it in this scene. Want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
You want to get nuts? Sham on!
Sham on!
I think it's interesting now that we're talking about the fact that Prince almost scored more of this soundtrack. I think it's interesting that Elfman gave, like I said earlier, like he gave the Joker that one waltz and he didn't really have a theme, and part of the time that we do Joker stuff, he is rearranging Beautiful Dreamer, which he also didn't write. So even some of the stuff that he's doing with the Joker, the very limited time that he gets to write for the Joker, for whatever reason, he's not even using something that he wrote in the first place. It's like he's doing it to himself.
Maybe he was just preparing for, like, at the last minute, they just cut all of his stuff out and replace it with Prince stuff. So it was like, I'm not
That's really funny.
put all this focus on the Joker.
Oh, okay. So now this scene is scored by Orange Crush, and Lawrence is just walking around with Orange Crush playing. So he's like, so he's like, hey, I know this guy named Jack. It's like, or not Orange Crush, Lemon Crush. Orange Crush would be great.
It'd just be like that scene in Wayne's World where they do all the gratuitous like product placement.
Yeah, but do you know that's an R.E.M. song, Orange Crush. So you just have Lawrence walk in. I got my spot. I got my Orange Crush.
Good thing he's got that boombox in. The way you've got like the internal logic for why he's playing it.
We're really lucky that there's not more, random 80s music in this movie.
Yeah, like if...
Lemon Crush!
If you do it now, you wouldn't have a boombox in a movie set now, but even with like Black Panther, anytime we go to like a club scene, they've got the incidental music playing. And like,
you might if you did like a 80s period piece, just to get as many different tracks that people have heard of as possible. You're like, look, it's the 80s!
oh yeah, especially if it's Warner Brothers doing it, because we just get another Suicide Squad with it, where they just throw in music just to have the music in there.
Yeah, or Transformers.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen that one. So.
Oh, okay. Because they did that too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Batman album. What is your favorite track on the album as a track?
Oh, Scandalous.
Really?
Yeah.
That is toward the bottom of my list.
Really? Wow.
It's fine.
See, bottom of my list is like Arms
It
of
sounds
Orion.
like film score to me, which I guess is good because the like Elfman ended up using it as film score. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little too slow for being so close to the end of the album. I think the track order is kind of off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Is part of it. I might like that. Like, I'm thinking about this as a piece. I did say just as a track. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, if I'd like just heard that on the radio, maybe I'd like it more. But like, I don't like it second to last. I think it should be somewhere toward the middle.
Yeah. As far as like track listing goes, it's weird that that's right before you get to Bat Dance.
So this is not fair, but I'm just saying I think that's influencing my enjoyment of that song because I've only ever listened to it in order with the rest of this. So that's not fair, but that's how I feel about it right now. So really, that's your favorite track? Wow.
Probably like trying to avoid like Party Man or Trust.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really hard because you are... Oh, I'm just playing Bat Dance right now.
You're going to get copyright strikes.
It's a bat. Yeah. So, anyway. Oh, I thought of this, too. I think... I'm jumping all over the place with Prince. I think the big reason that Bat Dance is not in... And I think today Bat Dance would be there.
It's the credit scene.
Yeah, that's your... That's your big, like, sell the movie on a song, and it's the song that was everywhere. We've talked about this before, but that had the, that great video. It's a weird video, but it had that video, on, MTV with, Prince, who's Joker on one side and Batman on the other side. So I guess one of those sides represents Michael Jackson, and we never knew that. We didn't realize it. But he insisted... What were you saying?
Is it in poor taste to say it's probably the side that's like Joker painted white?
Yes, but it's funny, so I don't know. But anyway, he insisted on making that the first single, and Warner's wasn't totally sure about it, but they ended up listening to him, and it was smart that they did, because it ended up being really good advertising for that film. And I mean, that makes so much sense. Like, just Bat Dance is on everybody's lips, like, weeks before this movie comes out. Like, yes, of course. Like, that was great. But anyway, I think the reason it's not... the reason it's not in the closing credits is because you would just be listening to a bunch of the lines of dialogue that you just heard in the film, and that might be kind of weird.
Yeah, but you could probably pretty easily do a cut of that without that in there.
Yeah,
I think if you remix it a little bit where it's just like kind of like that synth, kind of like techno bass pumping beat behind it.
I just thought of this too. I think maybe part of the reason that Prince insisted that go as the first single is because it samples a bunch of the songs on the album. Like it gives you a preview of the album.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you get
because Electric Chair is in that song.
Yeah. Oh, what's it? Another one that sticks out to me as being in there.
I forget. There's other ones, right?
Oh,
I don't think Lemon Crush is. I don't think Bat Dance just suddenly saw. And where is the Batman? Lemon Crush. Every time you do it, Lemon Crush.
No, I think it samples Trust, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's the big one I was thinking of.
Yeah, Party Man and Trust are both just wonderful. But I mean, like, I don't know. What is my favorite? It might be Lemon Crush, just because it's stuck in my head. And do you like that song? I like that song a lot.
It's kind of my least favorite. Like that and Arms of Orion, I just don't care for.
Ooh, I hate that. That is my least favorite, hands down. I don't like that at all. I think Vicky Waiting is kind of funny. It's almost a silly song to me. Like,
I really like that because it's so Prince.
It is very Friends, but like everything's all right in Gotham City. We're gonna get to hear that again because we're gonna watch the. I keep talking about the credits like we're not gonna see them. Like we are gonna see the credits. We're watching the film again. Can you believe how close to the end we are already? I feel like just pinning this down to this one topic, which I was a little bit worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about, like has made this fly by this time. I'm glad we made this 6. I'm glad we did this late because it's kind of made this material, fresh again after doing this for a whole week.
It really has, and I was very worried going into this because I'm not a music guy very much. Like I don't know like terms to describe different, different flows of music. Like obviously
like aspects of music. Yeah, I'm a real novice, but I do have somewhat of a. I mean, I do have a musical background. I don't. I'm not proficient at an instrument, but I grew up with a lot of vocal. I was in choirs all growing up. And my stepdad is a professional musician, so it's been all over my life growing up. But I'm very much an amateur.
Yeah, and I like the last time I did anything involving music was like 7th grade, trying and failing to play the guitar. So
I keep assuming that music like no music theory stuck with me at all, and that everything I know is just real common knowledge, but I keep having to explain to people what like syncopation means. Like there's stuff that I think is like real elementary that apparently you don't end up knowing if you didn't take music at all.
Yeah, or if it is something I learned in music classes, I just never retained any of it.
Right, because you just memorized enough to take a test, and then you forgot it right after because you weren't really all that engaged, and so.
Well, luckily, music class we never had tests. We just had to sing for like the Christmas play.
Right, so you learned enough to do that, and then you just it didn't stick with you.
I can sing "O Holy Night" though.
Oh, okay, good. Could you give us a Prince-like rendition of that?
I can maybe do like the William Shatner like spoken word version of it.
Every time you do it, a holy night. The music in this scene is hella eerie, and I love it.
Oh, it's perfect for like a dreamish type of flashback,
like a flash. Just that like. It's real great. That is the closest he gets to a Zimmer-esque thing, I'd say. Although it's still kind of more melodic than that violin stuff. It's kind of twisted.
Yeah, which I love because with the scene we're doing a more surrealistic type of flashback, which I guess fits for this film, obviously. But it's
a memory that is also a nightmare. I mean, it's handled real well.
Yeah, you're not supposed to look at it and think that's exactly what happened because of all the smoke and everything in the background. It is supposed to feel like
and like he's speaking in like slow motion, and yeah. But that's how memories of trauma are like. That like it all slows down, and it takes an eternity to happen. Where it's like at the same time as it happens so fast, it also like time stops, right?
Yeah, like.
And so when I really like that when he's like, every dance with like right after his parents die, gradually it's the whole world slows down.
Yeah, I'm always a sucker for things that do that. They like twist on how we perceive time and how we perceive memories.
Danny, you've landed on a thing that we've never talked about in a Batman 89 commentary. It's so exciting.
I had to get one in there. Day 6, we had to find at least one thing we haven't talked about.
So,
because we can't spend the whole time just talking about that long table.
This is yeah, like we did with Bob the Goon, just the long table commentary.
Oh man, that'd be great.
Knights of the Long Table.
Oh, that's perfect.
Dark Knights of the Long Table.
We just point out tables and like, okay, that's a long table. That's a short table. It's a long-ish table.
We just spend the entire time like pretending to pass each other things.
You just hear something scoot. It's just
Bob! Phone book! Phone book!
Pass the salt. The pepper? The salt. You want the pepper?
God, Alfred, you were in the other room just like squealing like a little girl, you know, like
That's where you get
like
the he's in.
they're just on the other side and having this big long table. They can't talk to each other, even though this room is really echoey and they should be able to hear everything.
That's how you get those Michael Jackson he's in. That's just Alfred laughing in the background.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the best choices in the score in the whole film, I think, is when the music drops out after the ball drops when Batman's about to murder all these people. And then we wait, explosion, and then here comes. Da 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 da. I love that. That's such a great bit.
Yeah,
that real subtle melody right before we get to the bombastic stuff again. It's great. It's like a half measure before the real first beat of the piece. It's great.
Well, you can't have really loud music playing while you're murdering a bunch of people. That's just in poor taste.
Yeah, I guess what would really be in poor taste was if he was in the car, because that would mean that he was actually doing the murdering. But we can blame it on the Batmobile. It's not Batman. The Batmobile's the murderer. That's the real culprit here.
It wasn't Batman's gun. It was the bullets in Batman's gun that did the murdering.
Right. No, see, Batman doesn't use guns because the only way you can count it as Batman using a gun is if it's just a handgun. Anything else is okay. If he's got machine guns but they're on his car, it's not machine guns. It's not guns. It's car guns. It's different.
If he shoots them, he didn't kill them with the gun. But if he holds the gun and batters them to death with the gun, then he's killing them with the gun, and that's not okay.
So my real favorite song on that soundtrack is probably Trust, but I'm just influenced too much by this scene. And growing up with this, it was my favorite as a kid.
This is
Trust, love.
This is certainly the one I think of the most when I think Prince and Batman. But yeah, I was trying to avoid like the obvious two, since those are this and Party Man are the ones that stick out the most. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite like Prince tracks.
I remember being a kid and being slightly bewildered by the line in the second verse that goes, "Sex, it's not that kind of party."
Yeah. That's a line that would probably fit better in Vicky Waiting, but not this one. It always catches me off guard too. I was like, what? Like, and this predates, I forget who it is, but they've got that song. It's like, we don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time.
Yeah.
That's all I ever think about when I hear that line, even though this probably predates that song.
It's really funny. I just like the idea of, like taking this too far and just imagining that like everything in the song is from the Joker's perspective. Where, like he's trying to convince everyone that he's that wholesome, and then he's gonna kill them all. And he's like, so no, we're gonna have this really wholesome party. No, sex is not that kind of party, and then you're all dead. Booze, it's not that kind of party. I'm gonna shoot out some Smilax gas and murder you all. Oh, trust. You guys are idiots. You shouldn't have been doing that because I'm not very trustworthy at all. You can kind of tell because I'm murdering clown.
You just flip that on his head and it's like, pin the tail on the donkey. It's not that type of party.
It's not that kind of party. You can get a shot and get hammered all night. It's a really easy song to parody. I'm really enjoying doing this.
Surely somebody out there has done some kind of parody of Trust. It seems like such an easy thing to parody. Distrust. Yeah. It is that kind of party. I don't know. Just flip every single thing in there. Make it the complete opposite.
You make a song about that weird movie that came out a few years ago, Tusk. the Tusk parody.
Oh man. So
by the Kevin Smith movie, Tusk. Tusk! It's not that kind of movie.
I haven't seen that, so I don't
It's
know.
really weird. It's not supposed to make sense. So you said your favorite song. This is really funny because I don't like Scandalous that much, and that's your favorite song, and I like Lemon Crush, and that's your least favorite. I don't think you and I have ever disagreed this much on anything,
especially not anything Batman related.
We have different tastes. We have really different tastes in music. Is that what we're finding out about ourselves?
Probably, because I'm
what's going on?
Huge hip hop fan, and
I don't have that at all.
Yeah,
but my son is.
Really,
my son's a hip hop dancer.
Nice. Who? I'm trying to think of like who is like a modern hip hop artist that would be appropriate for someone Jason's age.
The answer is no one, and it's awkward all the time.
Yeah,
you go to these dance things, and you see these like 8-9-year-olds dancing to music that's about things that you're like, okay, when we get in the car on the way home, I'm gonna be getting questions about what that meant.
Yeah, like all I can think of is like Cardi B and like Post Malone. And I can't think of any song by either of those artists that would be like anywhere near age appropriate for a kid. Like I guess maybe Sunflower off the Spider-Man or Spider-Verse soundtrack. But
okay. I haven't listened to that.
I haven't listened to the lyrics enough, but that's like the only like Post Malone song that I can think of that would be clean. But getting back to like the actual like Batman music.
Today we're going to do a commentary about the idea of the universal language of music.
Yeah. The universal language of the Bat Dance.
What kind of music do you think Batman listens to? Like, the answer is
Baby
none,
metal.
right?
Bat metal.
Bat metal.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, have you seen that animated song, Bat Metal?
Huh? I don't know what we're
it's
talking
like
about.
it's an animated like music video that's like death metal, but with Batman. It's all the lyrics are like Batman centric. I'll just send you the link to it because it's actually kind of funny.
I like that. I bring this up a lot because I like the Bane rap so much, but that Auralnauts video, you know what I'm talking about, with that's got the Bane rap, and it's called it's called like Bane outtakes, and there's a bit where it's all Dark Knight Rises, and Bane's plot in that is all about getting people to eat better, and it's hilarious. And he's like, he's Steve Pizza. Gotham's not even known for it. But then, if you've not seen that, I'll send you that video. It's one of my favorite things.
I've gotta see
I
that.
go back and rewatch that every couple of months. I love it so much. But there's this bit where Batman and because they're just using the footage from the movie, right? And when Batman and Catwoman get in the bat, you know, their flying machine in that movie, it takes off. And Mortal Kombat starts playing, and that's what Batman listens to in that movie. It's just bum 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 bum, and then Mortal Kombat, and then Bane goes, "Really?" It's great.
I like to imagine that Batman listens to Backstreet Boys or NSYNC.
So I just think I'm just imagining Batman like in the Batwing here, listening to Mortal Kombat, like Mortal Kombat. But yeah, I think of Batman as not like an especially cultured guy. Like I think you could do a take where he is, and I think it would be really fun to experiment with that, and actually write one where secretly, you know, Batman doesn't have a lot of time to watch movies and stuff, but like, you know, secretly he's like there's certain music that he listens to all the time that really drives him, and I like the idea that there is a Bruce Wayne side to Batman that is kind of high society, right?
Yeah,
that he does enjoy that side of the world, even though he's living in like maybe that's escape for him because he's always, you know, on the urban side beating up bad guys. I think of Bruce Wayne as like a Chopin guy or something.
Yeah, I definitely think he'd be one with like a Bruce Wayne. Would it be one with like a cultured taste of like he's got a taste for the finer things, obviously, with his upbringing. Especially like the Nolan version where he, you know, his parents.
Well, and Alfred would too, so he would have that influence. Like Alfred would still be influencing him in that way, you know. Yeah,
he'd certainly have like, obviously outside of the things like this is your salad knife, your salad fork, your.
I can never figure out which one is the salad knife. That is the
bigger one.
Oh, that's the salad knife? That's the one that you're supposed to cut up your lettuce with? Or your croutons? Is that what the knife is for? Croutons?
I think so. I think it's for like separating out the ranch dressing from the blue cheese dressing.
Some people just don't want to have to eat an entire half a tomato, you know? they slice that up.
I only wanted a quarter of a tomato.
Can you pass the salad knife? Pass the salad knife, Danny.
You cut out on me for a second there.
Can you pass the salad knife? You missed me yelling. That's unfortunate.
So we've got long tables, we've got long guns.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Just imagine the bullet on one end of that gun, asking if you can pass the gunpowder to the bullet at the other side of the gun.
This is going to sound probably somewhat too risque for Geekvolution, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm sure someone has written a paper about how that gun is a phallic symbol.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with him pulling
You're thinking
it out
what
of
I'm
his
thinking,
pants.
right? Like especially because it contracts and expands.
Well, I was more thinking because he's pulling it out of his pants. Very obviously pulling it out.
He's pulling it out of his pants, and it started off small, and then we see him contract it, right? So like,
yeah.
So like once this is gonna sound, he blows up the Batwing, and then he's gotten off now, and then he makes his gun smaller.
Yeah, I hadn't thought that much into it, but it makes sense.
Yep. Now I went there. Something's happened to me over the years. I don't know.
Sometimes a gun is just a gun.
Sorry, kids.
Yeah, and you can definitely make the argument here while he's got it fully extended, while he's got Vicky Vale hostage.
Well, so anyway, the music in this film.
So yeah, there is music in this film, isn't there?
Elfman talks about this third act as being his favorite stuff to write, and I think the stuff he's most proud of, which is really interesting considering that it's narratively where the movie really kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
So once again, he's writing a complete piece that totally works, and his characters are driving that piece, and that is not true of the actual characters in the film.
No, it's. I mean, obviously we talked about that, but it is kind of interesting how where the movie as its own thing has its faults.
I'm just pounding on things and breaking stuff. Sorry.
But where this movie definitely has its faults with its like story structure and like character motivation throughout the entire piece. The score definitely doesn't have that.
And just leaving some of that stuff out entirely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score does not have that problem. You know, the part where you're like, why are we suddenly listening to, like, mandolin music? That's really weird. I don't know where that came from. What was the motivation behind your mandolin music? This all segues really nicely, like, that music when he comes in it's not a waltz, but it's not so far away from that. Like, it leads really nicely into like the silly Joker waltz stuff we're about to get.
Yeah, to the point where it's even like called the waltz to the death, which I hadn't noticed until I was while we started this, and I was actually like reading the names of each track listing, because I only thought of like the waltz and whatever the first instance it comes up, and
I would have called this track Batman Leaves Vicky's Shoe, but it's just me. Still think he's a real big jerk for doing that.
It's a Cinderella parallel.
I know we talked about the shoe, but did we talk about how it's kind of a weird callback to earlier when she takes her shoe off at Wayne Manor, and I don't know if that's on purpose or if it's saying anything. Like, I don't know what that's about, but did we talk about that? I don't remember.
If we did, it's all blended together, but I don't remember that revelation.
It's an absolute revelation.
We've cracked the code to Batman 89. It's all about the shoes.
And like actual revelations, it might not mean anything.
We'll see if this was directed
it's by It's a real cryptic choice there!
If this was directed by Tarantino, I would think maybe there is some symbolism behind the
There's
shoes.
something to, yeah, it might be a little bit of credibility there. See, it all comes full circle. Now there's a bell. We've been listening to bells this whole time. There's a bell, and then the bell will come back at the end with the bomb, ding, bomb. Ding. When we get there, I'm just gonna do it. Just concentrating on the music. This has been one of my most fun viewings of this movie in recent memory.
No, I agree, and I don't know. Anytime I go and watch a movie, the last thing that's always on my mind is the score. So going into one,
of course, I don't have that. I actually pay quite a bit of attention to score, but
so going into this and like really trying to pay as much attention to the score while seeing everything else that's going along with it. It's very interesting to like pick up on certain things that I didn't even notice, like just listening to the score.
What Joker doesn't know is the death that we're waltzing to is his own.
And I know we've talked about this, but man, those like animated spotlights look terrible.
Yeah, but it gives us some charm, you know.
Yeah, sort of.
That's how you did it back then, man. That's how you did it back then. No, it's weird. It's weird. It looks stop motion.
Yeah,
it's not even fluid animation, you know. Like it looks like we
and
stop motion those searchlights. I don't know why we did it like that.
You would obviously you don't build like a full scale model of the cathedral, but surely there'd be a way to do that with like forced perspective and smaller scale objects.
The moral of this story is use the forced perspective, Luke.
Batman is trained in the forced perspective.
So I feel like Elfman's watching the scene, and he goes, my top priority is to make this dance with no music happening at all as unawkward as humanly possible.
He does a good job with it.
He really does. Because I think it's easy to forget, because we're listening to this waltz, that there's no music playing during the scene.
Yeah, and it would be very easy for that to become very noticeable that they're not so much offbeat, but they're not moving to what we're supposed to be hearing.
That's true. Yeah, and we're not with them too much, so it's not like you're not really watching that, trying to see if he's actually moving to it. I honestly can't tell you if he is or not. Like, he's not on screen too much, so it kind of works. It would be really funny though if there was a bit where like Jack himself, because I imagine that waltz is in his head. I want to think that because if you think about it, obviously there's no music in the scene where he kills Grissom either. So I would imagine that is us actually getting in the Joker's head, and when he's doing horrible things, he's just perpetually in his head. That's the soundtrack to his life. It's in his mind. Bomb, 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 bomb. And it would have been really fun if there was a bit where Jack Nicholson is just humming that. Bomb, bomb, bomb. And then Vicky's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't have Lawrence here with his boombox."
I think that would be a really great thing to do with the Joker, just to put him on that more of an unhinged scale, like where you don't go full fourth wall break, but you've got like a moment of I guess you could call it lucidity to what's like actually going around, where he's like what he's humming is like what we're hearing is like the Joker's theme.
Yeah, it's just a soundtrack to his life. I think that's great. This score here just gives the scene so much energy, and I love how anachronistic it is to what's going on. And this is a place I would argue that is scored kind of literally like a cartoon.
Yeah,
and it sort of works. Maybe people think it's too silly. I kind of like it.
I mean, it certainly works, especially when you mix in like the sound effect of his head hitting the church bell. It certainly all flows together very well.
Which is not part of the soundtrack. If you listen to the score, you will not hear that bell there, even though it is well timed. You'll suddenly just get a short bing.
I think that would be amazing.
It's basically it's effectively like a gong.
Oh man, we've got to do
like that henchman just played the gong show and he lost
and bashes somebody's head in between them. Work that into the soundtrack, just bong.
Oh, that'd be great. Now I'm imagining that in the Ninja Turtle soundtrack. Like if you go back and listen to that score. Because there's a fight where Michelangelo or somebody uses symbols on a foot soldier. And I believe in time to the music too, like bing.
Oh, that's amazing. If you ever bring back Turtle Torture Time, we'll have to look for that.
Well, yeah, but when we were doing Turtle Torture Time, we haven't done that in a long time. But that was only for bad Ninja Turtles things, you know, and we've done a commentary on that movie.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a good point. Yeah,
Eric and I have done a commentary on the movie, but yeah,
Torture Time.
He's like, no, we need to do another commentary just so you can make that point in a Turtles commentary and not in a Batman commentary.
A full 2-hour commentary for one joke.
Danny, why is it that whenever I say you made me, you guys say I made you? I mean, how childish can a guy get? You wouldn't hit a cat with glasses, would you?
Maybe.
I'm totally throwing my bloody chattering teeth at you. That's the next thing that's going to happen.
You wouldn't hit a guy with false teeth, would you?
That's gross. What's funny is that's kind of the most blood we get in the movie is the chattering teeth with all the blood on the floor.
Yep, we don't get blood we don't get blood on Grissom when he gets shot. We get it on the newspaper. But,
yeah, in the rule is in this world you only bleed when you get punched. It's kind of weird, but
get punched in the stomach.
At least they're consistent.
Yeah, you get punched in the stomach, you bleed. You get shot in the stomach, nothing. You're good. Take a salt tablet, you'll be fine.
At least when you get punched in the stomach, you don't get knocked out. I watched something earlier when somebody got punched in the stomach and they just got knocked out. Oh, it was an episode of Batman the Animated Series. It was Rupert Thorne. Batman kicked him from in the air, and he got knocked out. And I'm like, but you kicked his stomach. How does that work?
Knock the wind out of somebody that way, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I don't think they'd go unconscious for as long as he was.
Probably not, but if you get the wind knocked out of you, you can't get it back.
Oh, okay. We should test this at some point.
No, thank you. Because I know which end of the kick I'll be on.
Yeah, let's run Mythbusters on this.
Can you get knocked out from a kick to the stomach?
So, do you have, or maybe you said it already, do you have a particular favorite bit of score? Like, if you can name a track?
I'd have to look up the track name.
Because I think I'm gonna land definitively on the Batmobile with the fake tree scene. That is my favorite.
Oh yeah, Descent into Mystery. That's a good one. I was kind of leaning towards Charge of the Batmobile.
Yep, that's great too. It's right before it. It's also hard not to think of them as kind of extensions of each other, but
yeah, certainly.
Or one is an extension of the other.
Yeah, like outside of just like the theme, those are definitely my favorite bits.
I also want to point out specifically the percussion in the score because it's excellent. All of the use of what am I trying to say? Like xylophone and stuff is really good.
Yeah, and I honestly, outside of like very
bunch of it in this track.
Things, yeah, I couldn't point out like specific instruments or anything outside of like maybe like a gong.
There is no. I don't believe there's a. Yeah, there are a couple gongs in the soundtrack. Actually, no, you're right. There are.
I just meant like a very obvious thing, like the sound of a gong going dong.
Well, because for a minute I was like, I don't know if there is a gong. Yeah, no, there is a. It's actually right before. Oh, and then again percussion, like all the cymbal stuff is great. As he's falling down and dying, he's falling to his death. Right after his waltz to the death. Now he's dead. But I think it's a gong or a cymbal crash. It might just be a cymbal crash. I'm not sure. Right before the first use of the waltz, when he walks in and he's about to kill Grissom, because you get the big whoosh, and then that might be a gong, or it might just be a big cymbal crash. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell the...
There is a going somewhere, though. I just can't remember where exactly it is.
Yeah.
It's not important.
So going back to Prince, they sampled this, the chattering teeth for Bat Dance.
The chattering teeth or the laugh box?
Sorry, I always put the two together. Like
the laughing box. Yeah,
the laugh box.
They do. Yeah, it's great. It's right at the end. It's and that's weird too, because that was a single at least a couple weeks, if not several weeks before the movie came out, and so people are hearing this bit that they don't even realize is a big spoiler. I mean, like, it's right at the very end of the movie. It's not a spoiler because you wouldn't know the context of it. But you get the laugh box, and then you hear Batman go stop, and then it ends because he's stopping his Batmobile to stop the song, and it's hilarious. I love it. I also like the idea that laugh is just so annoying. He's just like, stop.
Yeah. Stop.
It's like a yell right before it. I'm not sure what the yell is. And also, so there are two versions of Bat Dance, and I have not heard the radio edit in a long time because I'm not even sure how to get it. Like, it's not on the CD. It's the longer extended track. I don't know if you've ever heard the radio edit.
I probably haven't. I've probably only heard what's on the whatever they released digitally.
Yeah, it's like a minute and a half longer. The one that you're used to. The radio edit's a lot shorter. Well, you have if you've seen the music video. That's the radio edit.
Oh, then I have. I just don't remember.
Yeah. There's a bit that I'm convinced is maybe from a. I say convinced. Maybe it's from a deleted scene or something, or maybe for some reason Prince just had somebody in a booth scream "son of a B word." I don't know why he would do that. But there's this bit where it's like, son of a bitch! And I'm like, where does that come from? It's not in the movie anywhere. Where does it come from? I don't know what that is.
It's just it's meant to be an outtake. Somebody messed up and you just hear the conductor go, son of a bitch.
Nah, because it's part of a longer line, like he's screaming about something and there's like a bottle that breaks or something. It sounds like there's a whole scene that's just nowhere. I don't know what it is.
I couldn't tell you. It's been so long since I've watched the music video for that. I do not remember any differences with the actual song.
You know what Batman's doing right this very moment? He's keeping Vicky waiting. So that he can stand on a building and look all dramatic for the audience. That's what he's doing right now. And still I'll keep Vicky waiting. I'm imagining, actually, he's just, he's singing that song in his head right now. Like, that's what he's doing. He's up there. That's him monologuing. You know, like the Tick's Always Mine is just Batman monologuing. And still I keep Vicky waiting for no good reason.
And then in BVS where he's standing up there for like 30 minutes, I'm keeping Superman waiting.
yeah, what do you... All is well in Metropolis / Gotham City.
In the sister cities.
It's daytime here, but nighttime over there.
Blame the continuous smog. Gotham's just got horrible pollution. And it stops right at that city.
Yeah, Metropolis is fine, though. It's got, you know...
Even
otherwise they call it Smogville. The city of Smogville.
Their sports mascot is just a dragon.
The Smogville Dragons.
That's the closest anyone will ever get to a Hobbit reference out of me.
That's really funny. Yeah, they're the Smogville Dragons are having a losing season because they've all got lung cancer.
Sponsored by Lucky Cigarettes or Lucky Strike cigarettes.
I'm glad that the entire closing credits aren't scored by the pop music.
Yeah, it would
take you out too quick.
Yeah, I like that it just kind of keeps transitioning with the Elfman score.
And there's Shirley Walker's credit again. It is kind of a problem with Phantasm. Because Phantasm kind of just immediately starts with that like really dated pop track, and you're just like, what is this music, and why did someone think to put it in a Batman movie?
I'm trying to think of which one that. Oh, the end credits. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was thinking like the movie starts with it. And I was like, no, that's like just chanting.
Really hot. No. That's the choir singing the Batman theme in what gloriously sounds like Latin, but is actually the names of people in the production staff. So Danny likes this song. I don't like this song that much.
Yeah,
maybe that Gotham City song. Maybe Vicky Waiting is not in this. Maybe it is just Scandalous. Do we get a little bit of Scandalous and then it goes into Vicky Waiting? Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. We've only watched this 6 times.
I only ever remember Scandalous for the credits. I don't remember.
So maybe it is somewhere in the movie and I missed it even this time. Maybe it's so subtle I just don't know where. Like I could look it up because I read it somewhere, but I don't know where it is right now. Just while we're talking. Scandalous. There's not enough going on in this song for me, man. It's too plain Jane for me, man. Like there's not enough to it. Like I appreciate simplicity and subtlety, but I think he's too far in that direction. I think it needs something.
I just really love his voice. Like
it's
the singing from it.
Oh, see, I don't have that. Prince has never really impressed me as a vocalist. Sue me, sir!
It cut out again, but I think you were saying you don't like... You've never been impressed by his voice?
Not really. Sue me! Sue me!
See, well...
Okay, Vicky Waiting is not listed in the songs they credited him for, so maybe I didn't read that anywhere and I just remembered a stupid thing that didn't actually happen. I don't know.
Yeah, like, I feel like I'd remember hearing the line about the organ somewhere if it showed up anywhere. Because that line always sticks out to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, that's it, folks. We have successfully, I guess, I think, maybe moderately successfully, had a whole music conversation through the entirety of Batman 89, and that was easier than some other things. That was easier than Bob Lagoon, most assuredly.
Oh, definitely. I thought this one would be the hardest one, at least for me, because I'm so unfamiliar with the music.
In some ways, I thought this was the easiest.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And I didn't expect it to be, but, like, that was really fun, Danny. Like, I really enjoyed just honing in on that one aspect.
Yeah, I agree. This was... I think maybe the first one is probably my favorite that we've done, just because it's just a straight-on commentary, but yeah.
Well, it's the first time you and I got to watch the movie together and talk about it like that, so it was kind of special for us, but, like I learned stuff doing this.
Yeah, me too, especially your tidbit about the three notes from the serial.
I'm so glad I went and listened to that. It's cool. Yeah, everybody go check that out. It's available on YouTube. Just find and somebody's posted the whole thing if you want to binge that serial. But the 1943 serial. Just go click on that and listen to the first 35 seconds and listen especially real hard to the first 6 seconds, because you will hear the first 3 notes of the Batman theme, and then note 4 goes a different direction, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really, honestly, in my opinion, one of the coolest tidbits to find of like a section of Batman that is like so iconic, going all the way back to like one of the very first like live action adaptations of the character.
Well, I'm also really excited that we did 6 of these and we're still learning stuff. We're still finding out new stuff.
Yeah, and still noticing,
because it makes this not a complete waste of time.
Yeah, and still noticing stuff in the movie, like outside of like
tidbits
about stuff, but like
and also thinking we're noticing things that we didn't. Like, hey, what do you throw? A gas bomb, you idiot! So next time is going to be, sadly, Tier, our final commentary for Where Did They Get Those Wonderful Commentaries, and Danny and I are going to perform the film. Just the two of us. Just the two of us! I just can't stop doing it. I wish Prince had done a rendition of that, actually. That would have been a good Prince song to cover, if Prince covered songs.
Yeah.
I don't think Prince ever covered songs, did he?
I'm sure there's...
I don't know that much about Prince.
Is the Sinead O'Connor song one that she covered of his, or one that he covered of hers? Nothing compares to you.
I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say where one begins and the other ends. It's a chicken and the egg thing. I don't know. No, I have no idea. I don't know the history of this. So I don't know. But anyways, I digress. Danny and I are going to again perform the entire film for your viewing pleasure. While watching it, we are going to try to recreate as much of the soundtrack as humanly possible. So we're gonna split parts. There might be some places, Danny, where we have to switch back, where one of us will play a part that we didn't play before, just to make it work, so that one of us isn't doing all the voices in a lengthy scene. I'm not sure exactly how to do it yet. I was thinking about inviting a third person to make it easier, but you and I have done all of these ourselves. I think we should try to. It's going to be hard. I think we should split it down the middle and try to do it, and try to do all of it ourselves.
You should see if Batcap is available.
He might be. Or he might be in. He might be in Florida taking a vacation. I don't know. But anyway, that guy, he's never around when I need him. But yeah,
superhero that guy is.
Yeah, we've had talks about that. But anyway, so Danny and I are. It's not going to be the same thing that I did with Eric several years back now, because we just, even back then, couldn't stop making 89 commentaries, where I did the quote-along commentary. This will be kind of a quote-along commentary, but more of a performance piece. So, Danny, we should try to practice it once, I think, if we can find the time to do that, and try to get a real good run of it. But my plan, Danny, and you're welcome to do as much or as little of this as you want to. I'm going to go the whole 9 yards. When there's not dialogue, I'm going to try to provide sound effects and everything. Like,
that's perfect. I might have to one-up you on that then. Or
I want to make this a thing where you're supposed to turn off the soundtrack, like you've got the visuals, but you can't make your soundtrack work, and what you're stuck with is us trying to recreate it. That's my plan.
You're just gonna hear a whole bunch of banana.
You're gonna hear a lot of that. Yeah, it's just so everybody knows, it will be annoying, but it will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. There will be some. Oh, I didn't do it at the end. I meant to. We were talking. The bomb ding bomb that will almost certainly happen, because we gotta fill time, but what I mean by it's not gonna be like the quote-along commentary is we did some actually talking about the movie in between lines. We're not gonna do that. The whole thing is gonna be just us trying to provide as much of that soundtrack as humanly possible. And that's how we're gonna end our week. So come back with us. I can't wait. It's gonna be so much fun.
I'm excited. I'm sad that it's ending, but I'm excited.
I'm sad it's ending too. But anyway, thanks a lot for listening, folks. I hope you had a good time, and we're looking forward to seeing your comments. And thanks a bunch for sticking with us, whether you've watched all of these. And we apologize profusely if you did that. And if you just came in for this music commentary, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And we'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Batman.
Thanks a lot for listening. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.